Hello and welcome. And what we'll be looking at today within Members Village is how to manage your events and take advantage of some of the more advanced functionality available to you, such as adding keynote speakers or attaching documents to an event. You'll want to head over to the administrative section and we'll start off by adding a new event. The first thing you'll want to notice as an advanced feature is the access group. Leaving this blank means an event is public, meaning any visitor to your website can see that event right away. If we set, however, a group to our event or an access group to our event, it means somebody will have to log in and be part of that group before they can actually get access to that event. So this is a great way for creating members only events. The start date we absolutely have to set, so we'll actually make this event starting tomorrow, and the end date is optional, so we can set it here. Now, if I were to leave the start date and the end date as is, then what Members Village would do for me is to create a pre-formatted time frame for my event. However, with what I can do now is set a custom label for my event in place of that date range. So I can say, I can actually create a label that Members Village will then use on my behalf. And that label can be anything you wish. So feel free to go nuts with your creativity. The publish on is just the date of when the event will start publishing and the event name. What you can also do at this point is set a cover image. So this will just allow you to simply pick an image off of your machine, your desktop, or your image collection, wherever it is. So feel free to choose any image that makes sense to you in terms of the context of the event. I'm just going to go ahead and pick this color swatch here. The location you definitely have to provide. And the details. So the details is your write-up about the event. The tags come in pretty handy because what they allow you to do is allow your visitors to search for specific types of events. So for example, let's say you use a webinar tag to tag a whole bunch of events with. What the user will be then able, or the visitor will be able to do, is actually just select from a tag dropdown and then say, show me all webinars, and they'll get a whole list of those. Now, the tag dropdown is not showing up yet, just because we don't have any events with tags associated to them. So we will go back here, and I'm just going to choose aircraft as my tag. Registration stuff we're going to cover in other tutorials. So there's two tutorials. One is a paid registration tutorial. The other is a free event tutorial. So feel free to check those out. And of course, we have to make our event visible, and I am going to make it featured as well. Optionally, what you can also do is set a photo gallery to an event. So let's say you have photos of a previous event. So let's say you're talking about an AGM or an annual conference and you have last year's pictures. You can then create a photo gallery of those images and then attach it here. And we'll cover how to manage photo galleries in another tutorial as well. But I've already got a collection created. So I'm just going to select our fish here. And as an advanced feature, what you can also do as an administrator is define a link for your event. So I'm just going to call it the short event link. That gives me the ability to create a really short brandable link for my event. And what I'm going to do at this point is go ahead and submit it. Now, at this point, our event is in the system. So we can see there it is right here. If we head back to the website, we see that it does not show up. This is because I'm not signed in, so the system does not allow me to see that event we've created. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. And after I sign in and head back to the events, here's our event that we've just created, and here's that tag dropdown I mentioned a little bit earlier. Now it's showing because the system is seeing that, hey, this person has access to all these other events which are tagged. And now that we have our event published, there's a couple of things I'd like to point out to you right away. On the events listing page, you can see here that this event is now visible along with a couple of items that are pretty custom to it. So here's our custom label that we've set for the dates. It is being used here as well. And for the viewers themselves, a couple of social media links that are available for them to share your event through. Now, these will be determined by the social media channels which are enabled within your site instance. So here we see Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. but they could differ for your instance. If we click into the event itself, we'll start pointing out the differences between or the advantages or the benefits of an advanced event, which here we can just see starting with the photo gallery. So the viewer will be presented right away with a couple of samples from that gallery, and they can of course continue then to click through and see the entire collection if they wish to do so. And we are missing a couple of items. So I did promise speakers, I promised presentation files. So we'll go ahead and start that now. So we'll head back to the administrative panel, and underneath the kebab related, we'll get an expansive menu here of a couple of other options. And the options we will cover today are the event presentation files, the event speakers, the event speaker panel. The other item we cover in different tutorials, so I highly encourage you to watch either the free registration or the paid registration tutorials, because those are available right now. We will also have another conference tutorial, which will be completely in its own collection and cover conference related items, which also use our events module. So let's start off with the presentation files. Let's go ahead and add one. And adding one, you'll see here that we have an event that is automatically selected for us because it's automatically associated to the event, and we have a description and file we have to choose. The speaker we can safely ignore because that is a conference item, but here I'm going to go ahead and give it a name, and I'm just going to call this agenda. And I don't actually have an agenda, which would normally be a PDF or a Word file. I only have images, but that's okay because for our demo purposes, Members Village does not care what the actual file format is because you're not restricted by any file format type. So you can upload any type you wish. You can upload an image, you can upload a PDF. The choice is completely up to you. And I will make this document visible. Now, one of the other things I want to point out to you is even though we've created a super admin or a members only event, this file right now will be a public file. So it will still not most likely be found by the general public, but there is a chance I could share the link to the file and it would be available then to anyone. So if I also want to keep my files secure, I can just set the access group on the file as well. So that's what I've done here to super administrators, and now I know only those members belonging to that group will be able to see my file. On the flip side, I could have a public event. So let's say there was a board meeting coming up, but I wanted the fact that the board meeting is happening available publicly, but then what I wanted to do is restrict the files that are attached to that event to be restricted to super administrators or board members or members only. So I could then have a public event, but then restrict my files, meaning anybody can see my event, but only those belonging to those groups can actually see my files, which is a nice little mechanism that you can use in your permutations of how you manage your events. So we'll just go ahead and submit, and now our file is live. So that is all good. If we come back to the actual event and give it a refresh, we can see here that the downloads section is now available. And if we click on it, here's our agenda. And simply click on that, and it's now opening up. Since it's an image, it'll just open up right in the browser for us. So we've now added in a file. There's no restriction on how many files you add to an event. That is completely up to you. So feel free to use that as you wish. If we go back to the event, what we'll look at now is actually adding a panel. So I'm going to go ahead and add a speaker panel. And I'm just going to call it the Crazy Fun Discussion Group. You can also put a little bit of a write-up about your panel as well. It is an option, but we find that the more context you give to your viewers, the easier it is for them to understand what they're actually being presented with, especially if you're using some kind of cryptic or maybe not self-explanatory text for the name of the panel itself. So again, the more context you provide to your viewers, the easier it is for them to digest your content. For our purposes, I'm going to just give it a very short little detail here. So I'm just going to say, and just submit that. Now, our panel is now created, and the next thing that we can do is come back here to the event and add a speaker. So I'm just going to go ahead and add speaker. And same thing with the as we discussed with the presentation files, you can absolutely restrict your speakers to an access group as well. So you could have, for example, a public event, but then you could restrict all of your speakers to your members only. Maybe, you know, you want to turn that into a members benefit where, you know, if you're on the outside, you are made aware of the fact that there is an event being held, but you have to be a member to actually who is going to be presenting at that event. I'm going to just give it a name, president. And I'm not going to choose a panel right away because I want to show you what it looks like just to have a speaker without a panel first. I'm going and I will choose a photo as well. I'm going to go ahead and choose one of my photos here. The external link, you can use the external link, and this would be just a reference to either their personal website, their personal page, or some social media channel. It is nothing you have to put in, but if your speaker wishes to have, you know, their personal site promoted, it's definitely something you have the opportunity to do. And we'll just go ahead and make that visible, submit it. And now we've got a speaker within our event. If we head back to our event, we can see here now that the speaker/panelists section opens up, and we've got our first speaker here. Clicking on the speaker brings up the entire summary about the speaker and their profile. And if the speaker were to have a link to a personal site or a personal page, that would show up here as well. Now what I want to show you is just simply how to add a panel to the speaker, or vice versa, how to add the speaker to a panel. So editing the speaker themselves just allows me then to choose from the panels that are available for this event. I hit submit. And if we come back here to the event, we can see that the Crazy Fun discussion group is now showing, and any speaker which was part of this group would be then listed. And then if you had more than one panel, all those panels would be listed one after the other. Back here to our event itself, just to recap, under the related tab here in the kebab, we've got presentation files, we've got speakers, and we've got the speaker panel. And you can see that all of these items that we've covered here today have this little number 1 beside it. That's just to simply show you the count of those items that you have within the event. So you've got 1 presentation file, 1 speaker, and 1 speaker panel. The last thing I quickly want to touch on, because we have another separate tutorial for this, is the summary. That's something you can click on from the kebab as well. And the summary will bring you into basically a world view of the event itself. So should you have registrations or form attachments, or at least lists of attendees, all of these items would be shown here. But again, that's covered fully in another tutorial. But the other thing I want to show here is within this summary, underneath the event dropdown, you have access to managing all of the different aspects of your event as well. So here you can have your presentation files, your speakers, or even manage the event itself. And that is it for the more advanced functionality of events within Members Village. Hope you enjoyed this series of tutorials. We love getting feedback, whether good or bad. We always look to improve Members Village for the value and added value for those associations who are using us. So feel free to throw anything at us. And thanks for joining us today.